Hello, my name is Kolov, and my topic is the Consumer Price Index in the construction industry. The construction industry is strongly related to the U.S. economy. So when the economy ebbs and flows, so does the construction industry. The CPI, which stands for Consumer Price Index, tracks inflation and escalation among a variety of categories, including materials, labor, equipment, and transportation. So the CPI is just a tool that estimators and project managers use to track prices and understand how the market's going to change, which ultimately helps them create a better and stronger bid. So what does the CPI tell us? Like I said, the CPI stands for Consumer Price Index. It measures the average change over time in the prices consumers pay for goods and services. This is broken out into categories. So there's housing, food, transportation, energy, clothing, and medical care, I believe. So when the CPI increases, it generally means that prices are rising and the purchasing power of the dollar is falling. So in other words, a candy bar costs you $1. In 2 years, that same candy bar might cost you $2. So your dollar, your money, no longer has the same value that it used to have. The most commonly reported version of the CPI is the CPI-U, which represents urban consumers. And this just helps contractors identify general inflation trends and determine how much an item or labor or equipment is going to cost in the future. So, construction prices do not always increase at the same rate as consumer prices. The CPI provides a broad overview of the economy in the market, but it is not a direct correlation and does not directly speak to the construction industry. The construction industry has its own material, labor, and supply chain pressures that affect that specific industry and economy. For example, steel, lumber, copper, mechanical equipment, electrical equipment, those prices can rise and fall much faster than the CPI because those items are very volatile and there's a lot of outside factors that can affect the prices on those, whether that's shortages, tariffs, weather events, transportation, supply chain disruptions. So the CPI, while it's a good overview of the U.S. general economy and market, it's not a direct correlation to the construction industry. Because of this, this contractor should compare the CPI with the Producer Price Index, which is also called the PPI, and this tracks prices received by producers over in a different, not necessarily the whole U.S. economy, but more in the agricultural, mining, manufacturing, and construction industries. And so these prices are more connected to the construction industry because it better reflects where the industry receives their materials, labor, and equipment. So construction or the inflation can affect construction in various areas. Four main areas would be materials, labor, financing, and bidding. Like I talked about on the last slide, materials, it can increase the cost of materials, products such as concrete, structural steel, lumber, roofing, mechanical equipment, electrical equipment. They can become very expensive and that to make and to manufacture and to transport. Second, inflation can increase labor costs as inflation increases the cost of housing, food, transportation. Employees are going to be expected to pay more because they need to be able to keep up with these rates. And so contractors should expect to pay their employees more as inflation rises. And then inflation can also affect financing. Like I said, employees are going to expect to make or get paid more so they can keep up with rent or their mortgage. And so if interest rates are high, it can make mortgages and construction loans more expensive. And so owners might have to reduce the size of project, or maybe a lot of residential companies are now building smaller and more affordable housing because inflation is so high. And finally, inflation can create risk when bidding jobs. If you have a number today and you bid a job today and you go to build it in 4 years, that number might not be accurate anymore because inflation has affected your original number. So how do you manage inflation? First, you track current data, use the CPI, use the PPI, use other indexes to make sure your numbers are up to date. One and two go hand in hand. Like I said, make sure your estimate is up to date. Make sure you're reaching out to subs and updating your numbers. Three, make sure you don't procure equipment and materials too early because if you buy too early, sometimes those materials can get lost or damaged on site. And last, make sure your contracts are written in clear terms and who's picking up the risk for inflation escalation. Thank you.